Former Fox Sports president Bob Thompson talks about the Mountain West. Realignment is always in the news, so we're back here on the Big Mountain to give you an update. Hey, good to have you back here on the Big Mountain. I am JY. Steve and I were able to sit down here this past weekend with Bob Thompson, the former president of Fox Sports. He's now a principal at Thompson Sports Group. And we released the entire episode here earlier this week. I wanted to edit this down to just the Mountain West items that we discussed with him. So here's just an edited version of what we had released earlier in the week for our Mountain West fans. I hope you enjoy it. Bob, welcome to the Big Mountain, and thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us.
My pleasure, guys. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. We're going to get right into some of our questions. I want to start with the Mountain West. That's, them in the pack is where a lot of the news is right now in the realignment game. Everybody I think knows at this point that 5 schools have decided to leave the Mountain West in 2026 to join the Pac-12. That left the Mountain West with 6 full members and 1 football member. We know now the Mountain West obviously added UTEP, or is going to be adding UTEP as a full member. And Hawaii becomes a full member as well in 2026. That gets them back to the minimum needed to be an FBS conference of 8 schools. Commissioner Navarez has said in many interviews that I have heard her speak, and we both believe she's one of the best commissioners in the nation. Just really impressed every time I hear her speak. They just had the basketball media days here a couple of weeks ago. I love to hear her speak. Just very forthcoming and just very down to earth. At least that's what she comes across as. But anyway, she has stated many times before that they have been making plans since last year, even when she became commissioner of the conference. So this wasn't really, it was new that people are leaving or schools are leaving the conference, but they had already been planning for targets, maybe invites coming forward. So that had already kind of been, the stage had been set for them. Clearly here, they're being very strategic about their decisions and what invites that they're doing. So would love to hear your thoughts here right now about the additions of both UTEP and Hawaii. What do you think that looks like for their existing media partners? And do you think the existing media partners are playing a role in these decisions in terms of what conferences are doing in additions of schools?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, that had to be a bit of a gut punch to the Mountain West when that all came down. It was a surprise to me. I mean, I kind of always knew there'd be some movement, significant movement, one way or the other between the 2 groups. Either the Pac-2 were coming in, or a bunch of Mountain West, if not all the Mountain West, was going to get together on the other side. I think you're absolutely right. They've been working on this. I had the opportunity to talk to Gloria right in the middle of all this, because one of her schools was looking for some information that they thought maybe I could provide. Unfortunately, because of some prior legal work, I can't really be on the other side of anything that Fox does. So I couldn't help them, but I gave her some ideas of other people to call, and apparently she did, because they stayed. I think strategically they've been working with the folks at Endeavor. Joan Brotkin, who used to work for me, and Hillary Mandel, who's been kicking around this business for a long time. They're 2 of the best as far as figuring out exactly how this next round of realignment should go, and strategically what markets make sense for the TV partners. The TV deal's up here in a couple of years, I believe, with Fox and CBS and CBS Sports Network. So they'd probably be at that point where they're getting ready to go down that road anyway. So now with the new setup, I think the only thing they might be talking to the schools or to the media guys now is if they really are interested in going beyond 8. Maybe they just go to stick at 8 in football and go 10 in basketball. I'm hearing a lot of Grand Canyon rumblings here in my hometown of Phoenix, Scottsdale area. So And you could say, well, maybe St. Mary's wants out now that Gonzaga's leaving. So, those two might be an interesting poach. As far as the media folks, I'm sure that, they probably, well, not probably, they have a right to first negotiation of some sorts, probably a right of last refusal, right to match, something along those lines, which gives them the pole position going forward. The question becomes, with the defections and the strength of the football level of those defections, is it something they're going to be interested in? Or are they going to look at the Pac-12, who are going to be in basically the same position and pretty much the same timing, would be my guess. So there's going to be a race there. The Pac-12 is involved in the race to 8 internally. They got to find somebody else, and it would be interesting to see. Maybe they go back and talk to some of the other schools that have been thrown around in the past, be it AAC or any of those types of schools, or even some of the Mountain West schools. It's never over till it's over, and as the saying goes, realignment never sleeps, and they are. You got to get everybody locked down, and I'm sure the commissioner has done the best she can at this point. But now they got to come through with the media deal, because I've seen a certain number of guarantees floating around, and she's going to want to pay those guarantees, hopefully out of the media deal and not out of the money she's going to take out of the Pac-12's back pocket, hopefully, when the other guys leave. So that's another thing that's going to be interesting, is how that lawsuit goes down. Historically, commissioners and presidents and athletic directors don't like discovery, and they like depositions and witness stands even less. And so I expect settlement. If you look over the past, and having been involved in some of these deals in the past, they settle, and they settle for some cents on the dollar. So I don't expect the whole 55 to get paid, but there'll be probably more than half gets paid, at least, I would think. That's just off the top of my head, based on what I've seen over the last 25 years in realignment. As far as the ads, I mean, Hawaii was, that to me, that was the layup. I mean, they've been living in sin for years, right? Kind of half married, half not. I think that, I don't know how the travel's going to all work out, but there's some benefits to Hawaii. Everybody knows about the Vegas Chase games, and which is a true thing. I mean, I've been rumbling around Vegas late at night, and there's a bunch of people in there in the sports book still watching the games. On my way to bed, I say, "You guys have a good time." UTEP makes sense, I think, for the schools. The other schools in Texas, I think UTEP's probably a better fit than any of the ones around, Dallas or the Houston area, because those markets, I don't know that they're going to corner the El Paso market. I don't know that they would have cornered the Houston or Dallas markets if they added one of those schools around there. But there are some intriguing schools there. I think Texas State, Carleton, Sam Houston, all, everything that's out there is interesting and is kind of poised. And it's important not just for the time zone, but for recruiting. I mean, to be able to plant your flag in those markets is extremely important. And in a lot of realignment moves, the background or the rationale was market size and where the recruiting goes, and just having your games exposed in those markets where you hadn't necessarily in the past. As far as the media guys, will Fox stay? Will CBS stay? I don't know. I mean, a lot of it depends if they go towards the lean towards the Pac-12 and those new schools. Fox is pretty loaded with having those 4 schools on the West Coast with Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, and then you've seen what they've done. They've kind of created instead of Pac-12 after dark, it's now Big Ten Friday night after dark, and which I kind of expected. once Fox lost the wrestling, it was pretty clear that they were going to lean towards Friday night sports. Since they already owned it, why go out and buy something else or try and create some scripted drama that probably would end up on Netflix anyway? So, CBS, slightly different scenario. They've picked off some stuff here and there. A lot of the Mountain West stuff in the past was important for CBS Sports Network, and they liked the service matchups and things like that. And so, they're going to lose some of that with Air Force going away. But it'll be interesting. You got some other guys floating around. TNT's got a couple $1 billion burning a hole in their pocket from likely not having the NBA. No, you never know until it's over. But they're they picked up a small package, and the interesting part is the package they're airing is mostly the schools that are left in the Mountain West. If you look at the TNT games.
Yes.
The CW's out there. I think, they like their ACC package, but there's not necessarily a long life on that. It's only got a few years to go. The Pac-12 deal, or the Pac-2 deal, I think was just for a year, maybe with an option or something like that. So they might like to stay. But if it's something they, can't work out on the Pac-12, maybe they go this way as well, because they're looking for stuff to marry with the ACC and marry with their NASCAR racing and create that whole day on Saturday. So, and then there's probably a streamer out there. The question is it going to got to be somebody like an ESPN Plus, or would it, say TNT comes in, would it be on Max? Something like that. CBS, they could offload stuff to Paramount Plus. So that's kind of how I look at it. They've got the head start, the Mountain West does, without a doubt. I think they don't like the idea of going to market with the idea of the TV consultants having to say, would you make an offer for us with these teams, and then a second offer with these teams plus another, or plus two more? I would always just kind of say, well, why don't I just pay you this amount for these teams, and anybody else that comes in, you pay for, or something somebody else pays for. I don't think that from a TV side, whatever they're bringing in is probably not as good as what they already have. So my idea of paying a pro rata amount would be off the table. I'm not a pro rata guy. Never liked those. Just, if you want to put something to me and I'll take a look at it, fine, but don't expect that you're going to get auto ads without me at least having some say in the matter. Because, you might be adding because you lost somebody who's more valuable than what you're adding. So it cuts both ways. So never a big fan of those. But I know the guys doing the Pac-12, and they're smart guys. They've done deals before. They know what they're doing. It just puts them in a tough spot, not knowing, what the ultimate size of the conference is going to be. You got Gonzaga kind of hanging out there. You still need an 8th football school. Are they going to go to 10? Or what, just what are they going to do? And so it just makes it a little more difficult to deal on the TV side, but not impossible. It's all doable. That's why consultants get paid, so they'll deal with it somehow.
Yeah, so a couple follow-ups, and I appreciate you kind of laying everything out there. So in a perfect world, I would think that from the Mountain West side, they want to know how many members they want to have, whether that's 8 football, 9, 10, whatever it is, and then they want to go to market with that full contingent of membership. You just kind of hit on that. So again, in a perfect world, I guess the timeline would be, we're going to probably see the additions happening, the commitments of the additions happening here over the next several months before they take anything to market with the Mountain West. I know the Pac is doing things a little bit differently, but is that what you would say is probably what we're going to see with the Mountain West?
Probably. The only thing is I don't know the particulars of the Mountain West TV deals. I don't know what time, when the trigger dates come as far as exclusive negotiating windows, things like that. Those can, kind of go 12 to sometimes 18 months in advance of the expiration. So they got another year on their deal, I think, or is that right? One more year.
Yes, it goes through 26. Yeah.
It's probably they're probably coming up on it if they've got a 12-month. So there'll be some window, might be 90 days, it might be 120, where they're going to have to talk to Fox and CBS. So if they don't know exactly who they got, they're going to have to go with some either stick with what they got or go with some what ifs. And again, that would not be my pleasure as the seller, nor as the buyer.
Right. Couple follow-ups on additions. I want to maybe dig a little deeper into Hawaii because they are very unique in terms of they get that you mentioned the chase bets out there in Vegas, which is a real thing. And also it just gives you that late time slot that nobody else has. They have kind of owned their home media rights and would have been able to sell them on their own. Spectrum, I believe, Spectrum Sports is our partner this year and has been their partner. Can you maybe expound a little bit on the value of the Hawaii market and just having that extra time zone that you do get that late game and just what that might mean to a conference?
Well, for Hawaii, it's always been kind of the best of both worlds for them. They keep the rights at home, and when they play on the road, it's part of the Mountain West. They've had a deal, it was with Time Warner Cable forever, and we used to sublicense some games from them in the early days of the regional sports network business. Now, Time Warner was bought by Charter, who operates a Spectrum, so they've continued on with the deals, and they like them. I think not sure if they're still doing them pay-per-view like they did for a lot of years, but um, it's great for Hawaii because that's their only team.
Right.
They got really nothing else, and it's a big deal. The Rainbows are a big deal in Hawaii, so I think from that standpoint, and I don't know all the financials, what Spectrum's paying them, and what share of Mountain West money they might have got, but I think for the conference, pulling in that time zone, pulling in that market. You look at a lot of these schools on the West Coast, and there's a ton of kids from Hawaii. I mean, they're putting out a lot of kids. I went to Oregon. We've had five quarterbacks out of there, and including the current one. So, and you look up and down the coast, whether it's the BYU's and the Utahs and the Oregons and all over San Diego, they're always a fair number of Hawaiians. So from a recruiting standpoint, it's great. From an exposure standpoint, it's great because it's a decent sized market, and it does add that extra time zone, which allows you to do a couple things. Number one, you can fit more games in across your broadcast partners. You're not having to double up on a bunch of things or relegate something to streaming. So if you can do a scenario where you've got a couple games on CBS or CBS Sports Network, FS1, FS2, there hasn't been a lot of Mountain West games over on Big Fox unless it was a BYU or not a BYU. Boise State was the one that Fox tends to pick up on if they put it on the big network. So that would allow you to have multiple games delivered nationally across, in reasonable times in each time zone without having to inconvenience a lot of people. You play an early game, you play an afternoon game, you play a night game, you can play a late night game. So you really got 4 good solid windows for the just basically going from Central through Hawaii.
Yeah, that's great. And that goes right into my last question on the Mountain West. And I promise I'm going to let Steve have some time with you and appreciate all your time. But you mentioned kind of fitting games into different windows. And there has been talk that the Mountain West is actually looking to the Central time zone and even the Eastern time zone with Toledo. So, early news came out that Commissioner Navarez had reached out to the MAC, maybe looking at football only with Northern Illinois and Toledo. You had mentioned some of the Texas schools. We've been banging the Texas drum here for the Mountain West. Pretty much every episode we talk about this. We just think that's a fantastic market, both in terms of everything that you've said and the time zone. I'd love to hear from you maybe a little bit more about what that means to be in potentially here. Let's just crystal ball this and say both Northern Illinois and Toledo say yes to the Mountain West. They would be the only conference in 5 different time zones. Can you maybe talk a little bit more? You mentioned that with Hawaii, but to have a conference in 5 different time zones, one would think that a media partner, again, to fit those games into different windows, that they would love that. Can you speak to that maybe just a bit more?
Sure. It comes with some good things in that you're, like I said, you're spread across you got a lot of windows that you can fill across the different various time zones. You're recruiting in all those time zones. You've got, everybody's got displaced alumni, so you're reaching them that way as well, assuming you get some coverage out in those areas. The thing that's tough is you end up with like what Washington had this week, a 9 a.m. kickoff
Hmm.
in Washington for when they play Indiana.
Right.
And then the flip side is when was it Friday night after the baseball game?
USC and Rutgers.
USC Rutgers
Yeah.
kicked off about 11:30 at night, I think, in New Jersey. So the when you have that many time zones, and it would even be even worse when you had Hawaii, especially if they're playing an East Coast school. Can you imagine a
Right.
2:30 a.m. kickoff for
Yes.
Rutgers or something? I think the time zone's that 3 hours. Um, so it cuts both ways. I think it's a harder paradigm if you get to that fourth and fifth time zone, but it does open up more opportunities to get games carried um, where they're not up against other games, which is kind of what you hope is that you're not eating, we just call it eating your young by scheduling two games of the same conference up against each other.
Yeah.
And because there's conference fans and there's specific team fans, and a lot of people would watch a conference game, um, if that was the only game, even if their team wasn't in it. And so it's, like I said, it kind of goes both ways, but I can see the advantages for them. I don't know that they need to go east. I think stopping at Central is probably um, would be my suggestion.
I'm going to bring us back down to an FCS level. We have a lot of commenters that follow FCS, especially with the Mountain West. Obviously the Dakotas and the Montanas get a lot of love. We've been giving Tarleton State a lot of love because it's hitting some of what we would like to see with the Mountain West in terms of Central Time Zone, Texas, the recruiting, all that kind of jazz. I would like to know, maybe from your side, do the media partners get involved at all with the conferences when they're looking to possibly pull an FCS or invite an FCS program up to be FBS? I mean, we see a lot of that, specifically in Conference USA. That seems to be a lot of what's going on there. But there has been some murmurings here with the Mountain West that they may be looking at the FCS side. Are there any concerns from a media side of things, or from a media partner with that? Or are they just looking at, hey, a member's a member, and the conference can deal with the membership side, and if there's a cost to that? How does the media partners do they get involved in that in any way?
Well, wouldn't necessarily be politicking for a FCS school because they mostly are smaller markets.
Yeah.
And TV folks, you know, markets probably aren't as quite important as they used to be because all the good ones are taken. But as a TV person, it's ingrained in your head. It's market size, market size. With college football, I think in college football in general has taken a slightly different tact. And again, I think it's because a lot of the major markets are all chewed up, and that is it's what's your alumni base? What are your rivalries? What's your commitment to facilities? Excuse me, what's your donor base? What's your history? Um, what's your student body? All those things. What's your social media appearances? Things like that. All these things now that, I guess to a certain extent we use to justify in our minds that, yeah, that makes sense. They should come up. But I don't know necessarily that the FBS schools are all that thrilled about having a bunch of new FCS schools in. That's why they jack the initiation fees up so much. Because what that becomes is it's another mouth to feed at the CFP table.
Yeah.
And that's going to be taking money out of somebody else's mouth, and they don't like that. And so, I mean, I guess I could see if somebody really wanted to pay the bill and to go ahead and jump up the level, and maybe they agree, I'm not eligible for a CFP payment for some period of time unless they make the CFP playoffs, which I could see. There's some interesting the Dakotas has always been kind of interesting to me because of the consistently good product that's come out of there over the
Yes.
years. And so I can see it. I don't know that anybody at the networks are going to be jumping up and down on any conference table to add them, but it's an interesting thought. It's not the, I could see there are certain schools that are more appealing to me in the FCS world than the FBS world. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. All right. I can understand that that comment for sure. So, Bob, hey, we thank you so much for spending so much time with us, going over the Mountain West, the Big Ten Network, everything that we had here. Really appreciate you coming on the Big Mountain.
Enjoyed it, guys. Thanks for having me.
We really appreciate Bob Thompson coming on the Big Mountain to talk about the Mountain West, where they are today and where they may be headed in the future. If you want to see that entire episode, I'll put it here on the end screen. Give it a click. It's about 45 minutes long. Again, we were very thankful he spent so much time with us here on the mountain. As all of our dwellers know, we do everything Mountain West, everything Big Ten, and we stay on the ACC lawsuits and what's going on with the Pac-12. Lots to love, lots to like, and we are all over college football. So with that, give this one a like, subscribe if you like our content. We'll see you all next time on the Big Mountain.